All right, going live in about a minute. By the way, that's Anastasia, right? Kyva?
Hi.
Welcome, Anastasia.
Thank you.
I hope they could pick up the sound. It's going to be...
Yeah, I think so, because on the first one, I think you could hear it. Yeah, because people, when we were saying, oh, we messed up on that reset, and people were watching and they knew.
Don't forget your microphone to put on.
Voice of Montreal, News Talk Radio, CJAD 800, a division of Bell Media, and an iHeart radio station. This newscast brought to you by Electroaid, your air conditioning and heating specialist for over 65 years. 514-333-7460 or electroaid.ca.
Good afternoon. It's 4 o'clock. I'm Lieutenant. More sunshine tomorrow. The temperature right now, 16 degrees. Full weather coming up after the news. Here's what's making news right now. No major party candidate advancing to the French presidential runoff.
Do you want to put your headphones on?
Taxis look the same. And reaction following the death of
Just make sure you're close enough. Make sure you're just close enough.
From the CJAD 800 Traffic Center, Lord Blazer.
Looking at the inbound 20 now, slowdowns there from First Avenue. Southbound to County delays from St. Catherine at this point. Inbound T-Can lots of volume there from Dudley Ave. Had that earlier accident before DeCounty has been cleared out. The eastbound met some slowdowns from Rockland back to St. Laurent. The FM Mercier Bridge, good news there. Both lanes have reopened. Still a little bit of volume from Clément and the outbound John Cartier Bridge. Delays there from Rachel bypassing no south. Don't forget, if you want to install a fan snow is below, it could be possible to info excavation at info-ex.com. It's a free service. Traffic and transit every 15 minutes on CJAD 800. Your next report at 4:15.
And you can watch
In the news for the
for when it
first
goes
time
on air. This will go on air, and then you'll know.
Candidate will advance to a presidential runoff. ABC's Tom Rivers in Paris has more on today's first round in the presidential vote, which will end with the runoff May 7th.
Candidate 1, Emmanuel Macron, a man who's never been elected to any office before. Candidate 2, Marine Le Pen, who some have likened to President Trump. The stakes couldn't be higher for France and Europe in general. The results reflect the feeling that France is not on the right track, both in terms of security, especially with yet another attack here last Thursday, and the sluggish economy.
Voters will choose between Macron, a former investment banker, and ex-economy minister, and Le Pen, who has tried to scrub her National Front Party of its history of racism and anti-Semitism. A makeover for Montreal cabbies and an initiative called Taxi Bonjour. Officials at Montreal City Hall will public a plan that sees cabs with a sleek, two-tone paint job, white on the sides and a bright color on top with the word Bonjour on the doors. Under the plan, 4,500 taxis would standardize their appearance to match the 12 that are already on the roads. Owners and drivers,
Probably to compete with Uber.
The look doesn't address the harsh economic realities their industry is.
How about cleaning up the potholes
The
instead?
fire department says there was no smoke alarm in an Utima home where a fire broke out overnight. Cause of the blaze on the first floor of a triplex on Massenet Street is electrical, they say. An elderly couple has been treated for second-degree burns. More than 50% of the bodies were not yet under condition. Police have apparently been called to investigate. A heroic Anglophone woman who lived in the early 20th century will have a park in the borough of Hochelaga-Maisonneuve renamed in her honor.
Her name was Sarah Maxwell. She was a 31-year-old
Wow, we're late.
school on Préfontaine.
And then we got commercials after too.
On
Luciana
February
Papilla is
26,
just on the other side of the glass speaking. Just so you know.
I can see him.
The teacher and some students managed to escape from the second floor, but others remained trapped. Maxwell went upstairs and started escorting children over to firefighters on their ladders. Montreal historian Robert Wilkins.
They tried to grab her and pull her out, and they actually said, save yourself, save yourself. And she said, no, there are still children, there are still children. And maybe 10 minutes later, they were all found dead on the second floor of the classroom.
Wilkins admits he normally doesn't like it when they change names of public locations, but that this is a more than honorable exception that he says is long overdue. I'm Shu Yili.
Reaction to the death of a child star from the TV series Happy Days.
Joni.
Erin Moran grew up on TV playing Joni Cunningham on Happy Days. She also co-starred in the spin-off Joni Loves Chachi. Moran was found dead Saturday after a dispatcher for the Harrison County, Indiana Sheriff's Department received a 911 call. Moran had been in the news for numerous personal and financial struggles and was reportedly homeless at times.
Oh my
Her
God.
Happy Days co-star Ron Howard tweeted, Such sad, sad news. Rest in peace, Aaron. I'm Julie Walker.
Send tips and photos to your story at cjad.com. From the Dorming Weather Center, showers for tonight with a partial clearing expected by daylight. Gusty winds, a low of -3. Tomorrow, more sunshine, not quite as mild, looking at a high of 8. Temperature right now in Montreal, 16 degrees. I'm Luciano, picking you up. Next update at 4:30. Breaking news as it happens. News Talk Radio.
Don't forget microphone.
Can't miss conversation for Gang of Four with Tommy Schermacher.
This is a shameful assault on free speech. If you don't like the article, that's okay. You want to be critical of it, that's fine. But resignations and apologies, appalling.
Now, weekdays at noon. Make the time. Only here on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed with Matt DelVecchio.
Well, good afternoon, and what an afternoon it is today.
Oh my God, it's amazing. The weather, I have been waiting for this for weeks, and I'm ignoring that I heard it's going to rain again. I disagree.
Well, we need the sunshine. It takes the sting away from a little bit of a Habs loss here.
Oh, you had to go there on that? Oh my God.
Well, thanks for joining us, and you're listening to Life Unrehearsed. You know, all families have their challenges. It could be about yourself, it could be about your parents, or it could even be about your kids. And we're going to try to navigate you through the ins and outs of it all. My name is Matt DelVecchio. I'm a certified professional consultant on aging, and I'm here with my co-host Stephanie Erickson, social worker and family caregiving expert. Hello, Stephanie.
Hello, Matt.
You know, you could find out a little bit more about us if you want, and you could join us at the Life Unrehearsed Facebook page. And I have to say, Stephanie, one of the joys of doing the show is the feedback and comments that we're getting from everyone. And last week we did a show on bucket list travel destinations. And I actually had someone call me up and said, you know what, you put things into perspective. You know, I got
That's
where my
nice.
priorities are. And he went and booked a family, a bucket list travel destination. And he says, thank you, you know, and,
that's so
you know, I think
nice.
that's what it's all about. He's creating memories. And,
Yeah.
you know, that is what it's all about, isn't it?
Oh, that's really nice. Well, we haven't booked a family vacation at our house yet, but we already had ours booked for the summer. We do take one every summer. I'm definitely looking forward to that, but it's definitely not a bucket list trip. It's just, well, not just. I can't minimize. It's a vacation.
Regardless, get it done,
Yeah,
right? Create
exactly,
those memories.
Exactly.
Well, you know, we have a full show, and we're going to get right into it. A lot to cover.
Good idea.
You know, last week I was on a tour. I was taking an adult daughter on a tour of a retirement home for her mom, and her mom was experiencing some cognitive decline, and she's starting to go through this process of trying to find a place, perhaps for her mom. And just in passing, she talked about. You know, I don't have a power of attorney, and maybe I need a mandate, and I don't know if mom's will is up to date, and you could see a bit of panic in her, and I get it, because it gets so confusing sometimes, and we don't know where to go, and that's why we're so glad to have our guest today. We have notary Anastasia Kyva. Get that right?
You did.
Yeah, very good. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and you're going to bring us through the ins and outs of some of these some of these legal documents that we have to get in order, right, Stephanie?
Yeah, and thank you so much, Anastasia, for being here. We've been working together for several years now,
That's
and it's
right.
great to finally meet you in person,
That's
although we did
right.
have a Skype once.
That's right.
So
yeah.
I did know your face. As Matt was mentioning, you know, people often at later years begin to think about power of attorney, mandate, and these kinds of things. But often what happens is we don't think that we need those documents until a crisis happens, and then we're kind of like knocking our heads going, oh my God, why didn't I do this before? So let's just right off the bat, Anastasia, if you could name like what are the top 2 legal documents that you would recommend every single person, regardless of age, gets in order.
Well, obviously a will, because, I mean, death can unfortunately happen to any one of us at any time, whether we're young or older or, you know, no matter where we are. So that's very important. And the second one being the power of attorney, whether it's just the power of attorney or with the mandate of protection, or if it's, if you will, just a mandate of protection. And I think we'll be getting into the details of that. of the distinctions.
Yeah, we will. You know what? In fact, we're going to open up the lines too right away. And so we'd like to know if ever you found yourself in a position where, oh, gee, I wish I had those documents in place, and now I might be in a little bit of trouble here. So please call us and let us know how you handled it. And so you can call in at 514-790-0800, or if you're more comfortable, you could text at 514-800.
Okay, so Anastasia, I'm going to jump in. You mentioned mandate. I think a lot of people understand what a will is, so I'm going to move past that just for the interest of time.
Yeah.
Let's focus on power of attorney and mandate, because I find that people use those interchangeably, but they're actually not the same document.
You're right.
So break it down. A power of attorney is for when we're well, and it's really just strictly about financial management. Is that right?
Exactly. Actually, the power of attorney is effective immediately. So that's the difference between the power and the mandate. The mandate of protection is basically conditional on an incapacity happening, whether the incapacity is mental or physical, but there has to be a certain incapacity. The power of attorney, the moment you sign it, it's effective. Your attorney can go to the bank, withdraw money, deposit money, make different transactions, monetary transactions. They can put your house on sale. They can sign brokerage contracts on your behalf. So it's effective really immediately. The mandate, you really have to be in a position where there is sufficient reason to take away your legal powers as a citizen, so what we call the civil powers, and to have you granted, a mandatory the rights to administer your estate, not your estate, but your affairs, and administer your person as well.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Matt DelVecchio with Stephanie Erickson, and we have Anastasia Kyva talking to us about getting our legal documents in order. So you talked about the power of attorney, and I think a lot of people don't realize, they think it's all this power, but it really isn't that powerful once you start getting into mandate protection. Let's take that one step further. What happens when a person doesn't prepare in advance and something happens, a crisis happens? So what do you do in that case?
Right. Well, obviously, now we're talking about the mandate of protection more than the power of attorney, because it's obviously, let's think about a person who suddenly got into a car accident and is permanently unable to make decisions or at least express his or her wishes, right? Well, if you don't have a mandate, then if you have family that is willing to take care of you, you will have to constitute either a curatorship or a tutorship. And what that means is that it's a procedure that involves the assembly of your family members from both sides. It involves the public curator. It's a far more complicated procedure than having a mandate of protection and homologating the mandate of protection.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there, Anastasia, because you mentioned the curator's office, and I can just see people's skin and their hair is going up on the back of their neck, because people say this is, oh my God, I don't want the government involved. I don't want the curator involved. How do I take control? So when you're talking about the curator's office, you're not suggesting that they come in and take control. Families still, even if documents aren't in place, have the ability to put a family member in charge of making decisions for someone, for their health or for their finances. Yes. And the curator's office is not going to jump in.
No. That's only in the case where really there are no family members to take care of you. No one wants to go forward and actually administer your affairs. You're very right, and thank you for pointing that out to make that distinction. But what you have to know is that with a curatorship or with a tutorship, there is, you're going to have the person in charge, either it be the curator, a family member appointed, has to do annual rendition of accounts that they will be submitting to the government, versus a private mandate of protection, basically, that where you leave, you don't have to annually provide a rendition of account. It can be already very complicated. I'm sure, Stephanie, that you've seen cases where it can be already so complicated to take care of an elderly person, and on top of that, to have to fill out all of these forms and give them to the public curator, then have the public curator asking questions. It's not an ideal situation for a family.
So really, the lesson here,
the moral of the story is
be proactive and get
course.
Yourself involved, and just because you're going to save the misery and the time and the process, when it could easily be done well in advance.
Exactly, and I'd just like to maybe add a little bonus to the mandate of protection is that in the mandate of protection, especially if you have children, you'll be able to include a clause of tutorship. You'll be able to designate in advance a tutor that will be taking care of your children, and that's even more probably important than a person having to administer your affairs or to administer your person.
And
Yeah,
just just for clarification, the mandate of protection, which is what it's now called, from what I understand it used to be mandate of incapacity. So those are interchangeable. Is that correct?
Exactly. Now that the Civil Code has changed the denomination of the title, but it's exactly the same thing. I mean, clients who have done their mandates in the past don't have to redo them. They're still valid and completely effective.
Which is good to know. We don't have to redo them, and that's a good distinction you're just making, Matt. So we're talking about it's really important to be proactive, right? So we want to hear from you. What have you done proactively out there to make sure that your documents are in place, and perhaps you have a story as to how that helped you as well. Proactive, yes, but I know it's going to be expensive. Maybe not. We're going to find out. Anastasia, you can answer that question in a moment, but right now we're going to head over to the traffic desk.
The CJAD 800 Traffic Center.
Seem to have cut it off.
Are you up? So that was good. You know, we dragged it out because we didn't have to rush it. I got in an extra question, which we knew would be perfect. So we're just learning as we go. And you've been great. You've been really, really good. Great voice and good answers.
Really nice.
Yeah.
No, we don't want to. And now I think we should focus, Matt, I think we should talk about the family conflict and dynamics and those kind of issues related to having or not having the documents.
Yeah, you're going to talk about your question.
I'm going to go to costs. I'll come back to costs because that's what I just let out with.
Yeah.
So
and I'm going to probably have a second question on
okay, and then maybe I can lead into dynamics, which is perfect because that's what I do.
Yeah, right by the exit.
How's it going out there?
You know, it's distracting to have the monitors going because I was looking at you and then I saw this guy picking up this little girl on the side of the road and my attention got shifted. Don't watch TV. For sure.
Good. That's our sponsor, Sirota, right now. I'm going to,
oh, here's a question. There's several. Is a power of attorney document created in Ontario valid in Quebec? I lost my dear mom over a year ago and didn't have a will, but I was told that she didn't have a will. Am I entitled? So, help. And then someone help me, please. So this is great. Let's, I'll go to costs, and then you want to, instead of going to a follow-up question, do one of our texts.
So the question is a power of attorney document
Do
created
that
in
one.
Ontario valid in Quebec?
Do that one. That's a great one.
Okay, with that one.
Yeah.
And then you just go into the next question.
Well, yeah, but then I'll go into the next question. But I'm going to start with cost, so just not too lengthy, so we can get these in. Those are great questions. Then someone said, "Help me, please." Oh, it was the same phone number.
Happy Bay Days! We're celebrating with special weekend-only savings all around the store, like select Steve Madden handbags.
So these questions might take us to the break. I'm sure it will.
Well, there's only one question. I think it's all the same text.
There's three.
It's all the same text. There's just one long text.
No.
Oh, no,
There's two that are the same. The help me please is the one from the one prior, but the power of attorney Ontario Quebec's one person, and then another person was I lost my mom, she didn't have a will. I was told if she didn't have a will, I'm entitled to get money back. Can you explain what I can do? Whatever.
So you'll take that second text?
The will one, you'll take the Ontario Quebec.
Pardon me?
You do the Ontario Quebec, but I'm going to start with cost because that's what we let out with. Yeah.
Now we have a song that's going to be leading in, a little CCR, Fortunate Son. Susan, we got it.
Anastasia, and this is the second segment, and then we're done. It's like that fast.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's literally like ends up being maybe 20 minutes. So. But we'll get your phone number in, and your website's on our
We have a phone caller too.
Let's start with the text.
Listen to the CJAD 800 Comedy Show every night at 11 p.m.
This is Life Unrehearsed.
Oh, love that. And you know, that song, that upbeat rhythm kind of goes with what's going on in Montreal today in terms of the weather. Let's not, again, mention the game last night. Please, Matt.
Weather is great. Fortunate weather.
Yeah,
Please draw the
exactly.
line.
Fortunate weather, not a fortunate game. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. I'm Stephanie Erickson here with Matt DelVecchio, and we're speaking with Anastasia Kyva. She's a notary, and we're talking about the importance of legal documents. Make sure that you check us out on our Facebook page, Life Unrehearsed. We've got lots of texts and questions actually coming in, Anastasia, and I want to get to those in just a minute, so everybody hang on there. But I just want to go back to what I asked you right before we went to traffic. Cost. A lot of people say to me, oh, it's too expensive. This is why I'm not getting my mandate. This is why I'm not getting my will. Clear this up for us. It's much cheaper before than after, right?
Exactly, absolutely. I mean, I obviously can't tell you of a fixed fee because it'll depend on each notary and it'll depend on the complexity of the document. Whether it be the will, you know, you can have a very simple will that can be very inexpensive, and or you can have a very complex will involving business and, you know, all sorts of different considerations. But you're looking, you know, you're looking at a couple hundreds of dollars depending on where you're looking, which notary you're going with. But what you have to keep in mind is that a homologation procedure, especially for the mandate, let's talk about the mandate.
Okay, so homologation, let's just clear that.
Yeah.
That means when someone is no longer capable of managing themselves, there's a procedure that has to take place to confirm this person's not capable, and that's called homologation. I just want to clear that up. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. And it's a court procedure. You can do it before a notary, with a notary, or with a lawyer. But either way, it's a court procedure, so we have to go to court, and it costs. You know, it can cost over $1,000 to have that done, and but if you're looking at not having a mandate, then we have to go with a curatorship or a tutorship, in which case the fees are far more important because you have to have the family getting together. That's time for yourself, for your family members, and obviously for the legal professional as well. So it's far more expensive.
Yeah.
Again, be proactive if you can.
Yeah,
of course.
You know what? Let's go to a text. One text came in. Is a power of attorney document created in Ontario valid in Quebec?
Mm-hmm. That's an excellent question. Obviously, I would have to look at the document before I can say whether it's effective or not. But the idea is, legally, in principle, it has a legal value by which you specify and you clarify your wishes as to a particular situation. However, if in practice it may be, once again, far more expensive to homologate that document because it may not qualify. Make sure that all the clauses that you need in the mandate are addressed.
That's right. So you're listening to Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. Stephanie Erickson here with Matt DelVecchio, and we've got notary Anastasia Kyva with us. Let us know how a legal document saves some family conflict, because I know some of you out there have some complex family dynamics. We want to hear about how a legal document helped your family. We're going to get another text coming in here. Someone wrote, Anastasia, perhaps you can answer this. She says, or he says, hi, I lost my mom over a year ago, and she didn't have a will, but I was told that even if she didn't have one, I am entitled to get some money back. Can you explain this to me and what I can do?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, if your mother didn't have a will, it can be more complicated because what we have to know is the matrimonial situation of your mother, whether she was married or not. Were you the sole child? Do you have any other siblings? Do you have any other persons that are entitled to the estate? Those are all questions that are addressed when you make a will. When you don't have a will, unfortunately, you have an estate to settle, then you absolutely have to consult with a notary who's going to be able to exactly tell you how the estate may be settled and what you're entitled to.
Okay, well, talking about wills, we have a caller. Susan, thanks for being patient. And Susan, you're going to tell us a personal story about your father's will.
give. Yes, let's hear it.
Very good.
Excellent.
Well, Susan, thanks. I think that's great advice. Anastasia,
Amazing.
you must
Yes,
see that, or maybe
absolutely.
not see that all the time.
Well, we do suggest it to our clients. Some of them are comfortable, some of them are not comfortable by leaving this. But you can have, yes, a list of all of your assets, as well as any bank accounts or information annexed, meaning that we simply staple it basically with the will itself. The will is kept at the notary's office. The original is always with the notary. So you're sure that no matter what happens, no matter who is the liquidator or whoever is designated to liquidate the estate, you'll have that information on hand, making it so much easier for everyone.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. Stephanie Erickson here with Matt DelVecchio, and we're speaking with Anastasia Kyva, who's in studio with us, and she's a notary. We just had a great caller, Susan. She was telling us about all this organization and stuff she's done to help her son. I'll tell you about my grandmother. I've mentioned her before. She's amazing, and she is also extremely proactive. Not only does everybody know where everything is, she's actually had us go around her house and label items so that we don't have so we don't have any conflict after.
Right.
Although I have to tell you, when she moved from her home into a residence, she got rid of one of the items that had my label on it. I was like, Grandma, what happened?
I sold it.
Yeah, exactly.
Kijiji got a good price for it.
I know, exactly. I think it was worth it. I think it's like she maybe threw it away even. Anyway, so family conflict. That's getting us to family conflict. I see it all the time in my work. As you know, this is my specialty here, is exactly these homologations and these assessments. I mean, I would say at least maybe 50% of the people who call me tell me they're in conflict with their siblings. So tell us about how these documents can really save some strife for the family.
Well, what these documents do is that they take away the option of discussing your parents' affairs once the person has passed away, or whoever the deceased is,
or even if they're alive. I guess
exactly, because what this does is that it clearly states, and if there's a particular conflictual situation in the family, perhaps the notary will even have some notes as to why a specific legacy was made or not, or why the deceased decided to divide his or her assets in a specific way, and this brings the family in a situation where they don't have a choice but to follow those last wishes, and I think that's a great way to settle an estate, is by saying, listen, either my mom or dad, we may not agree with what they wanted to do, but this is what they had in mind for us, and let's work as better as we can, basically, to make it happen and to make it civil and pleasant for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Life Unrehearsed. I'm Matt DelVecchio with Stephanie Erickson, and we have Anastasia Notary, and you've been very, very helpful. Go to the other extreme now. You've just got stubborn parents, and they just don't want to deal with it for whatever reason.
Your kids are going to say that about you.
Oh yeah,
no,
they already do. They already do. Believe me. How do you kind of have that conversation and ease everything, the whole family into it?
Yeah. Well, listen, making a will is not an easy thing, right? You have to sit down. You have to think about death. It's not it's an unpleasant subject to go through and to think about. But I would advise the families to tell their parents, or whoever it is that is being stubborn, that think about all the consequences, and think about the legacy you're going to leave to either your children or your loved ones. And if you truly want to leave them in a situation where you will be remembered as the one who was disorganized and having your children run around town trying to find your banking information, or running around to the notary, or having expensive fees to pay for something you could have settled years ago while you were still alive.
Yeah, so basically we want to make sure that as adults, we're thinking about the mental health of our children, basically, because getting these documents in order will really help us make sure that, first of all, our family's not in conflict, and that they can actually focus on just being our daughter, being a son, and not having to worry about running around and trying to put all of these things together.
Well, Anastasia, it flew by.
That's true.
We want to thank you very, very much.
Thank you
and
so
if
much
you
for
wanna,
the invitation.
You're most welcome. Our pleasure. And if you want to reach out to Anastasia Kyva, you can reach her at 514-560-6983. Did we get that number right?
That's right.
Very good. And her website was also posted onto our Life Unrehearsed Facebook page. So coming up, we will be speaking with Corrie Sirota, author of Someone Died, Now What? Sounds kind of morbid.
It's not, though.
But
she's hysterical.
you won't want to miss what Corrie's take is on this sensitive subject. But first, let's head to the CJAD newsroom.
Good afternoon. I'm your channel.
That was
Here's
great.
the civil news right now for the first time in modern history.
Wow.
French history, no
Yeah.
major party
Phones?
candidate will be in presidential
That was
runoff.
great, Matt.
Centrist Emmanuel Macron and
I'm
far-right
getting
leader
voicemails on my
Marine Le
phone.
Pen advanced after
Okay.
major opponents.
You were great.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much,
much,
Anastasia.
Really, really
Ooh, I
good. That was
appreciate
good.
the invitation, the opportunity, truly.
Oh, it's our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Our pleasure, and you were fantastic.
Oh, well.
You've got a great,
A couple of-
you've got a great voice too. Very calming.
Yeah.
Very good.
It's a
Real
pleasure.
pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
She's
I have a card.
Yes, I'm going to take some of your
Yeah.
She's a very good notary, too.
Oh, that's
Oh.
very kind.
Oh, we just got another one in. Oh, well.
First place at the box office for the second weekend. Universal Pictures' 8th installment.
So, who's coming in?
So you're coming in.
I'm coming in, so I might mention that we got another question for Anastasia, and I'll repeat her phone number and tell them to give her a call. Well,
This weekend at
You gotta get Corrie in.
Okay.
you know how to get out, huh?
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.
Get out with the card.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Thank you.
From the
Okay, thanks.
No, it's on. Matt got his. I realized where it was. It was under privacy. That's where I had it. It's too bad we got another. This is a great question, actually. It's too bad.
Inbound 20 still slow from built-in gear at this point. The southbound John Cartier Bridge, that is actually from Rachel.
We have still several texts that came in, and then just repeat her number.
Yeah, just say give her a call.
Yeah.
You can get a $10,500 in cash credit.
So Corrie Sirota.
Of course, perfect.
Traffic and transit every 15
And
minutes.
I heard you already said so. This author of Someone Died. Perfect.
Yeah, we'll try to get the.
website? Yeah, we just posted on our Facebook.
Now, do you actually post
And
it?
at one point, am I able to come say about the camp? Just one thing. It might work out. Yeah,
I think we'll see if it fits in.
I'd like to, but yeah, I'll take a note of it to remember. I have you. What do I say? I said I just posted a link to your website, and you can also purchase your book on Amazon.
Yeah.
Do you want me to give your phone number or no?
No, the website is the best. Corrie.com. And the campsite, television camp is campsite.com.
Yeah, well, you can mention that if it comes up, and then yeah.
And I went through some very interesting stuff, and so I kind of have a good way to frame it if you want.
For the camp?
No, for the just this discussion of comfort in the morning. These are the three major main aspects.
Okay, so hopefully we
Oh,
get
you
to
tell me.
comfort.
Oh, that's what I thought we were doing.
Well, we are. We have. I don't know specifically which question.
Okay.
I mean, I have like coping styles of different. How do coping styles vary? How do you know what to say?
But that's
We're gonna
okay.
put you on the spot.
That's the other lecture.
But no, I said, how can we?
Good.
No, Corrie. How do we identify if someone is grieving as expected? What can people do if they're having a hard time coping?
Yeah. It was actually. I thought we were. How do you comfort someone who's coping? But that's my other thing is.
That
If
will
life
come up.
gives
That
you
will come up.
lemons, make lemonade.
That will come up in.
Well,
That's one of the
because-
questions you sent.
That's fine.
Yeah. It's
I
all.
mean, I answer this all the
Okay.
time.
You're going in. If we do that, that means slowly wrap it up. If we do that, it means start wrapping it up.
And if we do this, it means you're boring.
I'll try not to.
Mike.
Nope.
Real day with song and dance Tuesday, May 2nd.
So now we're at 4.
Wait till you hear the song we got
40,
introducing.
4:30. Huh?
Wait till you hear the song that we have introducing the sort of theme.
Oh, Monster Mash? No.
No, it'll be it's going to bring you back to your high school days.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. So fun.
And an iPad for students. Rules and transportation schedule is on our website, IsraelRallyMontreal.com. See you on May 2nd.
I wrote down comforting the mourner.
It will. It's both. I mean,
But I want to talk about your chapter, what stupid people say.
That's what I have all the. I have all the
I
do's
love
and
it.
don'ts. It's hilarious. I mean, it's hilarious, but it's not hilarious.
Exactly.
It's funny, but it's not funny.
Tickets on sale now. Visit eventco.ca. Spring savings at your
The thing
home
is that
store.
what I just came across a phenomenal article about what they call the hierarchy of grief, and that's why I said the when before the what. When do you do something? People are posting on Facebook. One family knows and has strong. So before we can talk about what to say, I think it's important to say, think about when.
Yeah, oh, that will be great.
I just love that. So I was like, when, and then when you understand, then what do you say?
Here we go.
With Matt DelVecchio and Stephanie Erickson. Brought to you by
I mean, come on, that is such a classic song. And people who aren't in studio, you just missed it. Matt stood up and did a little slow dancing move.
Although I just remember we're on Facebook Live,
Oh, that's
too,
right,
so I guess
that's
a
right.
few people
Yeah.
might have said, I got to be careful.
You saw his moves. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800, and we're talking about all the things that can come to us in life, whether you're a senior or an adult or you've got children, working, stress. We talk about it all here. I'm Stephanie Erickson, social worker and family caregiving expert, and I'm here with Matt DelVecchio, certified professional consultant on aging. Just before we get introducing our guest, I just want to mention we still have a bunch of texts coming in for Anastasia Kyva, the notary who was just on. Unfortunately, she's gone. We can't answer those questions, but you can give her a call at 514-560-6983, and her website has been posted on our Life Unrehearsed Facebook page. Okay, so now we're going to dive into this. I'm so happy to have in studio Corrie Sirota, the author of Someone Died Now What? She's a grief and loss specialist and also a very good friend of mine. By the way, Corrie was my first friend when I moved here from California to Montreal.
Oh, really?
Corrie was my first
there you
friend.
go.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here, Corrie.
It is great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Corrie, thank you. 2 weeks ago, Corrie, I attended not one, not two, 3 funerals in the span of 8 days.
Oh,
And I guess things happen in threes, right? But it was amazing that all 3 were very different in the way how the families coped with it and the ceremony itself. And it was quite amazing. So we're going to talk about how people cope.
Right.
But first, I was intrigued when I heard the story behind you writing the book. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So sometimes I say, what's a nice girl like me doing a profession like this? And so really I would say that I didn't find it, it found me. I was already a social worker, and unfortunately I had an older brother who was hit and struck down by a car and died on impact. And all of a sudden my world had changed completely. And it took me a few years to just make sense, or try and make sense of what had happened, and I started to realize I don't know if there's enough services out there, and I'd like to see more support for both the families and people who surround those families, and what do you do? So I made it my mission and have been doing so for many, many years now.
Very nice.
Yeah, so Corrie, I mean, first of all, I'm sorry for your loss, and we'll talk about what people say that's stupid or not stupid when someone loses someone, so you'll be able to possibly correct me and chastise me if I just said something totally inappropriate. But first, as Matt mentioned, we want to talk about coping styles. So I'm curious for you, because in that situation with your brother, and you don't have to necessarily talk about it personally, you could mention the people with whom you work, but you were a daughter and a sister. I don't know that you had children at the time, but then your parents lost a son, you lost a brother, people lost grandchildren. So does it matter? Not does it matter, but is it different how people cope?
Absolutely. I mean, you said, Matt, you were surprised that it was so different. I'm so not surprised. I'm surprised that you're surprised because it's so personal. Everyone grieves differently, and that's in terms of helping someone, recognizing that everyone grieves differently. So how you might have handled or coped with something is very different. And then apropos what you just said, Steph, it is very different to have the experience of a death of a parent, a child, a brother, a sister, aunt, uncle, friend, pet. Not better, not worse, different. So based on your relationship, good, bad, or indifferent, you're going to have different types of reactions. People are going to, some will, the women who or men who wear black for the rest of their lives, and others that go out and get right back in the dating game, and people are judging them. Too fast, too slow, not right. You're mourning, you're laughing. How come you're laughing? How come you're not laughing? It's so sad that you never go out. It's so sad you always. How dare you go out? You didn't love them. And even within the same family, you see fights.
Yeah,
you didn't love them enough. So it's very different.
Very different, very, very personal. You know, we're going to open up the lines again, and we'd like to find out how you have coped with a loss of a loved one and how you've handled it. So please call us at 514-790-0800 or text us at 514-800. I'm wondering, with social media becoming so important, I find that death is treated a little differently now, especially with social media, where there's almost those that want to just keep things into themselves and those that will just put it all out there on Facebook and wherever they have. And I suppose, again, it's individualized ways of coping.
Oh, I'm glad you raised that, because I've seen a couple of articles recently, and one just struck me so much where they talked about the hierarchy of grief. And I think social media is an amazing place and space for people who want and invite that. But at the same time, I think that those who want to support someone who's grieving really need to think about, before they post something, timing. Because timing is everything. And if I have a death in my family and I'm dealing with that death immediately, and somebody else hears and they want to post, but I haven't told everybody, they don't realize the ripple effects. I really want to caution people before. It's always nice to offer, if someone allows you and gives you that space. It's wonderful, beautiful community, but you have to wait.
Yeah, because you have to be respectful to make sure that everybody in the family is informed. Yeah. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed, CJAD 800. Stephanie Erickson here with Matt DelVecchio, and in studio we have Corrie Sirota, a grief and loss specialist and the author of Someone Died, Now What? Corrie, I want to jump into my favorite chapter of your book. First of all, the title of it is fantastic. It's Get Over It and Other Stupid Things People Say. Along those lines, I hope I didn't offend you when I said I'm sorry for your loss. Was that offensive?
Actually, it was perfect.
Ah.
I think so.
You don't have to leave the studio.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it was perfect, because less is more. We have this need, and let me couch it under the umbrella of care. Everybody, I want to believe that everybody doesn't want to be cruel or say something hurtful. However, having said that, they have to think about what it sounds like to the mourners when they hear something either that starts off with at least, or something someone should or ought to do. No. I think we need to give grievers the space and the place to share with us and listen. Talk less. I was at Mark Twain. If you were supposed to talk more than listen, you'd have 2 mouths in one ear.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk less, listen more, and if you can't listen, fair enough, but don't ask how are you today? How are you is a very loaded question for somebody who's grieving. How are you today is much more realistic and more manageable.
And I hear the phrase, and I've been told that it's not the appropriate phrase, I know how you feel. I've been there.
Yeah.
And I've been there, done that. And I assume that's not recommended.
Well, and also I'll just throw in there, because maybe you can answer this too, Corrie. People would say after my dad died, well, at least he was already, in his late 60s. I'm like, at least nothing. My dad still died. So I get, these are all along the same line. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's people, why I say the umbrella of care is people try, they want to make it better. So here's the thing, you can't make it better. You can accompany someone through the loss, but you can't make it better. You can be supportive, but no way, really, just give them that space so that they can share, and you can't fix it. And I know that that's hard, because people want to. Of course we want to fix it. We want to help someone. But unless you can bring the person back, you really can't fix it. And knowing that everybody grieves differently, what you say to one person is not necessarily what someone else would want to hear. So listen.
Yeah, it's very, very good advice. In fact, we want your advice because as we care for our loved ones and they may be grieving, it may get to a point where there's some warning signs that we need to look out on their behalf. So we want to talk about some of these warning signs, but first we're going to head to the CJAD Traffic Center for a traffic update.
Good, Corrie.
Very good.
People they don't want to talk about it, but then when you let them talk about it, they can't stop talking about it.
It's true. So you're just opening the door for them. And then,
you know what's really nice about what we're doing so far, if I do say so myself, is we're laughing at the same time, which I think is good, because people might want to turn this off, and that might actually be something we say is maybe people want to turn off the radio right now because of, oh my God, this is grief, but you know.
They're fascinated. They want, I mean, I do this thing where I say to people, when I tell them what I do, they go, oh. And that doesn't show up on radio, but that's what it does. If something about what I do is contagious, you know.
So we're going to come in with that was a good Janet Jackson song.
I love that song.
I heard it, but I didn't realize.
And is it me who's returning? Is it me who's returning? It is.
So you're returning.
Perfect, because I want to talk about that song.
Talk about that, and then I have a caller. Well, we have a caller that I'll get into, Karen.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll return. I'm going to make a comment about that song, and then you go straight to caller.
Okay.
Perfect.
Hey everyone, there are only 9 days left to take advantage of Hyundai's factory authorized.
I'm going to find out when we have to get out.
Perfect. Oh yeah.
David, are we out around 56, 57, 58? Sure. Okay. Okay, we're at 56 sharp, not past. Because last week I think we did closer to 57. So 56.
So that means, Corrie, in case you're watching, at 55 you need to be done talking so we can wrap up the segment. Okay.
That sounds crazy delicious. You'd be crazy not to.
So I'll be closing it out. So I'm going to talk about it's available on Amazon, your websites on our webpage, anything else.
What very important, if I don't get into Camp Aaron, I'm running a free grief camp for children this summer, weekend-long grief camp. If anyone has a child that's experiencing death.
Okay, that's very important. We'll make room for that. And
what are you? Oh, we're going to the caller. Okay.
See, if I can fit it in, I will. But
well, it's important to you. You're taking your time to be with us if we're going to get it in.
Well, I disagree. It's my show. You're going to talk about it. Oh wait, this is live. People are like, "Oh my God, I thought Stephanie was nice."
So we got into not say I got my hierarchy of grief and God, the future. People forget that after the first year. So ask me a question if you want about, okay? Because people forget, anniversary, birthday, help. They think, oh yeah, you're good to go. It's been a year. So important. If you want to help somebody, so important.
So what do you call those? Like
triggers, life cycle, just
life cycle events.
Yeah.
Okay, so Steph, you go.
I'm going to talk about the song.
Go to me, listener, and then that's your.
That one?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Unless the listener says something that I'll follow up with, and then you would go to that.
Okay. And just about time, how time heals, but let's not forget about it.
Trigger. I don't even say time heals. I say it's what you do with the time.
You meaning the person grieving or the person surrounding?
Person grieving. People want, that's what get over it. They want people to rush through it, and you don't. It's forever. It just changes.
Cuisine West Island Kitchens is unlike other kitchen showrooms around. They manufacture all of their own cabinetry right here in Montreal. From design to installation, let the team at Cuisine West Island offer you.
Okay, so if I don't get to the trigger question after the caller for some reason, you'll take it after. The life cycle events. Life cycle events.
About this, the time.
Anniversaries, birthdays.
Cuisine West Island Kitchens for those not easily impressed.
Because it's already
Know what's happening every minute of every day with the iHeartRadio
Sorry?
app. CJAD.
Because it's already 49, so we only have about 6 minutes.
And your favorite hosts.
Yeah, we don't have time for much.
Leslie,
It's fast.
Natasha, Aaron, and the night side
We
with
just
you
have to have
wherever you
meeting.
go.
Huh?
Never miss a thing.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Conversation.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll give you a good, like around the holiday. I can have holidays in Greece.
Okay.
I just did something with the empty chair at the Seder.
This is Life Unrehearsed with Matt DelVecchio and Stephanie Eric.
Oh, I love Janet Jackson. Okay, can I tell you that I can actually do a lot of her dances? Love her, and I love that song because after my grandfather died, I listened to that song a lot, and it's so joyful. It's about loss, but it's a very joyful feeling, and we'll be talking about music therapy actually next week.
Yes.
So that's kind of that was a therapy for me. Yeah.
Very good. In fact, we're going to get right into some callers here, Corrie. We have Karen, who is experiencing a loss. Karen.
Oh. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your call, Karen. She's bringing up an interesting point that death brings out our real feelings for people. So that's interesting to me. I hadn't ever really thought about that. Would you find that to be true, Corrie?
I think it changes your perspective.
Okay.
That's what I would say more so than anything. And Karen, thank you for your sharing so openly and honestly. Something else that she mentioned is that people will often say, call me if you need anything. And I would direct you or suggest that you say, can I do a carpool? Can I pick up your groceries? Can I do? Can I walk your dog? All the suggestions that Karen had mentioned, because when you say to someone, "Call me if you need anything," not many people will say yes. I mean, it's great if you can, but most will say thanks, and they won't. So be concrete.
You know, that sort of leads into what we talked about before, traffic and warning signs. You know, you're talking about how you're helping out, and some people must worry about a good friend that has lost a loved one. And are there warning signs that we should be looking out for and maybe have to take a little bit more action than we thought we should have?
My rule of thumb is look for significant changes in behavior. If someone was always quiet and they're still another quiet now, that's not a change. If someone is a very outgoing, boisterous person and then all of a sudden you see them withdrawing, I would look into the frequency of a behavior, the intensity of that behavior, and how long is the behavior lasting. Because first and foremost, after a death, everything is pretty much normal. All feelings, I'll say feelings aren't right or wrong, they just are. And so, as Karen was saying, you don't necessarily know how you're going to react. And I applaud her for saying sometimes it's relief. And people will whisper it to me because they don't think they're allowed to say that out loud. And I'm like, no, you don't know. So for the griever, expect the unexpected, as long as it's not illegal, immoral, or dangerous. Pretty much everything that one does is okay short term. It's just how long is that lasting and how significant is that change?
Yeah, so I want to just make one comment you were saying, and Karen brought it up, is there was some relief. And one of the comments I got on LinkedIn this week when I posted you being on the show, someone said to me that when his mother died, it was a relief because she had been so sick for so long that moment was actually a relief for the family. I don't think he was happy she was gone, but at least the moment of death was a relief for him. I want to talk about life cycle events, Corrie, because someone dies, but then we still have their birthday every year. We still have anniversaries. We still have holidays, weddings. So I guess, does the grief change over time and at least minimize a bit?
I think that it changes and it depends on, it's not how much, like people say time heals all wounds. Whether that's true or not, I would say it's what you do with the time and how you process the time. And it helps to have people around you, supportive people who will recognize and acknowledge these changes. Because sometimes I say after 3 months, people think, that's good, the casserole stopped coming, and they're done. They're good to go. And no, it's a lifelong process, and anybody who's had a death knows that. So it does change. It's not, I hope it gets, not that it gets better or worse, it just changes. It's like a roller coaster. So there's times that are tougher or not. So apropos those what I would call triggers or anniversaries, please remember that for someone whose dad has died, every Father's Day is difficult.
And very good words of wisdom. And Corrie, our time is up already. Thank you so much for joining us. I know, though, you wanted to talk about Camp Erin.
Well, I'm very grateful that this year we are offering in Montreal for the first time ever a bereavement camp for children ages 6 to 17, free. I'm going to say it again. So anyone interested would please contact me at Camp Erin, CAMPERIN, at ymywha.com. We're looking for children. We still have some spaces left and would love to take a child who's experienced a death life on a weekend.
Wonderful. Well, that was Corrie Sirota. Thank you so much for being with us. You have a wonderful book called Someone Died, Now What? I believe it's on Amazon.
It is.
Very good. And we've got Corrie's website on our Life Unrehearsed Facebook page. Now, we're hoping you could join us for next week. We have a really exciting show. If you were to ask me about music therapy, that's what we're going to be talking about. And we will also have Susan Sofer, an occupational therapist, who will be discussing seniors and driving. Please join us. Now off to the news.
They're so fast. Yeah, it's
That's a wrap.
Someone, I feel so bad. Listen to what someone wrote.